Last week, we told the story of Bidii, a hard-working father, a husband, a man full of life and dreams. He walked into the hospital with a simple condition and walked out with medication that was never meant for him. Due to a mislabeling error, Bidii was given the wrong drugs. Days later, he died. He left behind a young family and a haunting question. How does something so preventable still happen in our healthcare system? Misdiagnosis and medical errors are not just numbers in a report. They're real stories, real lives, real pain. Today, we look at the faces behind this silent crisis, from the front lines of care to those affected most. In a world where one label can mean life or death, the smallest error becomes fatal.
They told us that it would be okay. The medicine that we were given at the hospital will help him. But it turned out that the medicine that we were given was actually not his. And he started reacting so badly to this medicine, and we had to rush him back to the hospital. Unfortunately, it was too late. They said that it was a labeling mistake, and it is so unfortunate that I had to lose my cousin just because of a simple sticker.
Across Kenya and beyond, misdiagnosis is driven by more than human error. It's fueled by under-resourced systems, paper-based records, and a lack of traceability.
My name is Purity. I'm a clinical officer by profession. In my field of practice, as a clinical officer, once a patient comes in the hospital, of course, you have to welcome them in the facility. You have to clerk them to know their symptoms and what brings them to the hospital. We have to examine depending on the symptoms and signs you are given. Then you have to do investigations. Other than doing investigations, you can do empirical treatment, but after doing investigations, you have to come to a diagnosis and manage the patient. After management of the patient as a clinical officer, you can decide to send the patients home, give them referral. That is also part of management.
Most of the times, the doctors may rely so much on investigation results. So if you do not have proper tools for investigating, laboratory and radiology, sometimes you may not come up with the appropriate diagnosis.
With the limited tools and resources, first, when you start with the tools that are medically used to examine patients so that you can arrive to a diagnosis. But more often you find when you don't have the appropriate tools, you will just examine the patient and then you will give an empirical treatment depending on, as an individual, what you have at that time. So that may not that may lead you to maybe treat the patients in a way that they don't deserve, injustice to patients. And again, then you'll have to, then may incur resources, other resources, when now after your treatment, they get sick again because you might not have given the right treatment because of your diagnosis. When we come to resources, we find that there are some medical equipment that are needed to make a diagnosis because some investigations are costly. So when you don't have enough resources, you won't be able to use that to reach to your diagnosis. So when you misdiagnose sometimes, or more often, you give a diagnosis that when you arrive to a treatment, you won't give proper treatment. So that also may affect credibility of the facility or you as a clinical officer, and also may also affect the patient because psychologically they might have to be sick longer enough, and also that is also mental torture to a patient.
Okay, with limited tools and resources, I'd say that it will lead to delayed diagnosis. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, the patient has a fever. Fever is something which presents in so many conditions, and I would maybe need a specific test. Let's say, for example, if I'm suspecting the patient has malaria, I would have to do the malaria test first so as to initiate the correct medication for that condition. So with limited resources, It can also lead to misdiagnosis. Let's say, for example, if I don't have maybe an ultrasound or an X-ray, I would only be relying on the patient's symptoms, and I would easily miss out on maybe the correct diagnosis, and this can also lead to giving wrong medication.
I once received a prescription with the wrong dosage for a pediatric patient. A pediatric is a child, and the prescription was in an adult dose. So what we did is I flagged it and returned the prescription to the prescriber, who then corrected, and at the end the patient got the right medication. As a profession, we normally have a procedure where we should counter check the name, the age, even the weight, even the gender of the patient, because some medication are specific to the gender, age, and weight, such parameters. And that's what I did. We counter-checked first, and then is when we noticed that the prescription was wrong.
I was treated for malaria, but turns out I had early-stage kidney failure. I collapsed at work. I only found out the truth when I made tests at the private clinic. If I had not, I did have like Bidii.
These are not isolated incidents. They are warnings. Our healthcare system needs more than passion. It needs precision, accountability, and visibility. Is there a solution? The answer lies in standards, systems, and accountability. In our next episode, we explore how traceability standards can prevent tragedies like Bidii's. We'll speak to regulators, standard creators, and tech innovators who believe a safer, smarter healthcare system is possible. Because in healthcare, every name should be known, every drug should be traced, and every life should count.